I want to talk a little here about Trump's presidential immunity, because there's so much misinformation out there, and this is one of those subjects that people get wrong. I hear it all the time. There's a complete misunderstanding about the Supreme Court's immunity decision, and it's important that people understand what the court actually said. Now, let me begin by saying that was an absolutely awful opinion with which I completely disagree. However, to say that it was an awful opinion does not mean we need to exaggerate what the court did. And that's what I hear whenever this is discussed. People say that the Supreme Court gave Donald Trump absolute immunity. That is absolutely not true. So let's talk about exactly what the court did. Okay, what the court said is that when the president, and of course this only applies to actions taken while president. So anything that Trump did as a private citizen, as long as the statute of limitations had not run, he can be prosecuted for. But by the time he's out of office, probably the statutes would have run for any crimes he might have committed. But any crimes that he commits once he's out of office, and I know people think that he will never leave office, I am not one of those. I think in the end, this is going to end very, very badly for Donald Trump, and he will one day be out of office, and things are going to get much worse for him at that point. And that's one of the reasons why I think it's important that we understand this immunity decision. Anyway, after he leaves office, any crimes he commits at that point are certainly fair game for prosecution. The immunity only applies to actions while president. And so what actions are immune? Well, the court said that anything that is a core constitutional function of the president is absolutely immune. That has absolute immunity. Then you have another whole level of actions, which are a much greater set of potential actions, and that's anything that are within the scope of his official duties as president. Things that aren't core constitutional function, but are nonetheless still part of his official duties as president. That's not absolutely immune from prosecution. There is presumptive immunity for those types of actions. A presumption that can be overcome by prosecutors upon a showing to the court that prosecuting a president for those crimes would not in any way impinge on future presidents' ability to conduct their job. Okay, to conduct the official duties of their office. So it is presumptive. There is presumptive immunity, not absolute immunity and not automatic immunity, but a presumptive immunity for official acts is how they referred to it in the opinion. But anything that is not an official act, not within the scope of his duties as president, even though he may be president when he does it, is absolutely not immune from prosecution. So any crimes that Donald Trump commits that are completely personal in nature are fair game for prosecutors. For example, if he committed any crimes related to insider trading, with the whole tariff thing, those are personal. Now, you can't prosecute him for imposing tariffs, but if he dealt with, committed crimes of trading on insider information, helping other people to engage in crimes like that, being a party to those crimes, that's completely personal. So Trump could be prosecuted for those kinds of things. There's a whole array of crimes that Trump could be committing right now as we speak, and probably is, because this man is a walking crime spree. There's all kinds of crimes that he's committing right now, I would bet, that have no immunity from prosecution whatsoever. So I just want to be clear about this, because, as I said, I think this is going to end very badly for Donald Trump. Now, He may be successful in turning the United States from a constitutional republic into a fascist dictatorship, and he may never leave office. That is possible. And that's what will happen if the people do not fight back. But I am seeing, as I spoke about in my last video, and I will continue to speak about in future videos, I am seeing reasons for optimism. People are beginning to fight back. People are beginning to wake up. Not even 100 days in yet, and there's already lots of very hopeful and optimistic signs out there. And I think in the end, Donald Trump will not be successful. And I think this is going to end very, very badly for him. And I am not giving up the hope that one day this man will get the justice that he deserves. And that means to be finally prosecuted for at least some of his crimes and to be sentenced to prison. Is that likely? I wouldn't bet a lot of money on it, but it is certainly possible. And while it is possible, that's what I'm going to be fighting for. And part of the fight to achieve that, I think, is educating the American people to the best of my ability as to what the facts are, what the law is, what the Constitution is, and correcting this record about this idea that he has absolutely immunity and the Supreme Court said that he is completely above the law. Correcting that, I think, is part of that. Here is why Donald Trump has thus far gotten away with his crimes. It's not because of the Supreme Court. It's not because of that immunity decision. It's for one reason and one reason only. Because the American people stupidly reelected him. That's why he's not being prosecuted. That's why he's not going to go to prison for the insurrection. That's why. The American people gave him a free pass. The Supreme Court's decision on immunity, as bad as that decision was, did not save Donald Trump from prosecution, conviction, and imprisonment. If Donald Trump had lost the election, he would be standing trial for those crimes. If the Supreme Court wanted to, they could have completely dismissed those charges against him and given him absolute immunity, as so many people erroneously believe that they did. They could have done that. They didn't. If Donald Trump had not been reelected, he would be standing trial, and he almost certainly would have been convicted and sentenced to prison, where he belongs. But the American people saved him. The American people gave him functionally immunity for those crimes, even though the Supreme Court didn't. So if you want to blame people, if you want to be angry about the fact that this man has gotten away with his crimes, you should be. I certainly am. But let's blame the right people. The people who deserve the most blame are the people who voted for him, because they're the ones who let him off the hook. The Supreme Court certainly deserves blame for that horrible decision and, importantly, for dragging out that case. They were, make no mistake, they were trying to help him by dragging out that case to the point that even after the decision, there was not enough time to put him on trial before the election. So the Supreme Court absolutely deserves a lot of blame, but they don't deserve all the blame. The ultimate blame is with the American people. They're the ones who gave him immunity. And since he doesn't have it, since he does not have absolute immunity, and since this man is a criminal and will never stop being a criminal, I don't think we should give up on the idea that one day, if we fight back, we can drive this man from office and one day put him on trial for his crimes, because that's what justice deserves. Anyway, thanks for watching. Talk to you again soon.